Now, studying suttas, I'm sure if you have been following my teachings, is about knowing yourself. It's not so much about knowing the sutta. The scholars want to know the sutta. We study the suttas so that we know ourselves better, so that we free ourselves, so that we become awakened. You find the suttas that you download from our Telegram and elsewhere, or our website, they are very well organized and kind of following some kind of academic standards and so on. They help us to kind of organize our ideas, compare notes, if you like, and learn to ask questions. That's the important thing about knowing the suttas. Occasionally, I will just read some writings by the forest monks. You find the forest monks, they don't actually write. They just give oral teachings. And you find the ideas are all there according to the suttas. But they're not so well organized like what you read in the suttas or in the sutta books or the writings of the scholars. But you can feel the peace, the practice behind the way they write, or should we say the way that they speak. So they're keeping up the oral tradition, in other words, these forest monks. And they, of course, they're very peaceful people. They practice, they live the Dharma, and they pass away peacefully. So today's sutta is about asking the right kind of questions. So it's a very interesting sutta, and in that sense, it's teaching us how to ask the right questions in that way to know ourselves. Buddhism is two things are very important in early Buddhism. The first thing is learning to ask questions. Of course, at first we may not know how to ask good questions. Today we're going to learn about that. The second important thing about early Buddhism is translation. There's lots of translations. We learn to translate things. We learn to translate words at first, like the word dharma, the word karma, and so on. And then we learn to translate sentences. And then we proofread suttas. You find it helps you to understand the suttas better also. Sooner or later, when you grow deeper into the Dharma, into the suttas, you probably want to translate passages for your own study. It's not an easy thing to translate. It's really, there are a lot of things to be done. But it's really something you either have it in you or you don't, or you're the reader. For me, it's the great curiosity. What is the Buddha saying? What is this sutta saying? How is it different from an earlier sutta? And after 50 years of doing sutta study and translation and teaching, I begin to discover so many wonderful new things. I've begun volume 62, and there we find it's about meditation. I discovered there's a short sutta in the Samyutta called the Paṭicca Sutta, the parable of the lamp. It's a shortened version of the breath meditation. It tells you what are the benefits, and the Buddha says, well, this is the meditation I do, and breath meditation is good because, and 9 reasons given. And it's a kind of summary of the long Anapanasati Sutta, M117, I think. So it's good to begin. You can begin with this short Paṭicca Sutta, and then from there you go on to the long sutta. So I begin to discover very interesting connections in the suttas in this way. Today we're going to look at how this Moļiya Phagguna, he keeps asking the wrong questions, but he still asks questions. And of all people, you ask the Buddha these questions. So imagine if you ask the Buddha questions, you're going to learn a lot of things. So we're also going to learn about the nature of consciousness. We're going to learn is there a self in the consciousness, and so on. Another very interesting feature of early Buddhism is it talks a lot about consciousness. I don't think any other religion does that. And modern scholars have kind of like help us with words, technical terms to understand the way the Buddha talked about consciousness. So if you look at five aggregates, if you look at dependent arising, the way the Buddha speaks about the nature of consciousness, we can speak of two basic kinds of consciousness. Now, the first thing is we know things, we cognize things, we know things, we sense things, if you like, through the five physical senses. Now, although I say physical senses, the mind is always behind it. That the mind is the mastermind working, telling us how to see, what to see, and so on. So this is called cognitive consciousness, and it comprises of vijnana, consciousness itself, and nama rupa. Basically, how we look at something and then we name it. We always need to name something, right? If we don't, we are lost, right? So nama rupa, we name thing, and then there is the rupa, there's a thing. So this aspect of consciousness and vijnana and nama rupa, consciousness and name and form, they work together. They're called cognitive consciousness. This is a modern term, cognitive consciousness, how we know things. Right now, you're listening to me, right? So the nama rupa is working very fast, telling you, teaching you what's going on. Now, the other consciousness is more subtle, more natural, more ongoing, whether you are awake or asleep. This is called existential consciousness. Existence. It is your life itself. This is pushed by craving and driven on by upadana, clinging, craving and clinging going together. Okay, so these are the two kinds of consciousness, kind of helping us live just as we are. Now, it sounds quite serious, the way this Buddhist psychology puts it. This as if it's a terrible thing. These are like very powerful tools, so we have to be careful how we use them. A hammer is very useful, but you can hurt yourself with a hammer. So to a saw, so to a needle, and so on, right? So we have to be very careful how we use all these tools. So these are mental tools. So let's look at how this sutta teaches us how about asking the right questions and the wrong questions. And how does Moļiya Phagguna do that? Okay, let's look at the Moļiya Phagguna Sutta. Right, very good. Moļiya Phagguna. Moļiya means someone with a knot on the top of the head. Now you see, sometimes quite fashionable. Some people. Actually, it's a very old hairstyle. It's really dated, about 2,500 over years old. It was very popular in Thailand, and also in China. And you find some people around you might also have this kind of knot. So it's called a Moļiya. Phagguna is his name, and the sutta is named after him or about him, the Discourse to Moļiya Phagguna. As 12.12, quite easy to remember. No? The Blessed One was residing at Savatthi. And then the Buddha says he's going to talk about the four kinds of food. Bhikshus, there are these four kinds of food or nutriment. Now you notice I often prefer to use simple words. if I can, single syllable, like food rather than nutriment. But when I write in my essays, I usually use big words, and some proofreaders often advise me, can you use a simple word? So I love nice words, exact words. So anyway, so here I use both words, food as well as nutriment, right? The idea of a single syllable word, they're very poetic, they're beautiful in their own way, all kinds of food. I mean, if I say food, it's easier to understand. You say food, you have this feeling, oh, I feel like eating. If I say nutriment, I'm not sure if you feel like eating. When you tell me nutriment, I feel like a grasshopper. Anyway, so 4 kinds of food for the maintenance of beings that have a reason, and for the support of seeking rebirth. So 4 kinds of food support us right now and cause us to continue to be reborn in the future. What are the 4? Number 1 is called material food. Let's just look at the list. Number 2 is contact. Number 3, mental volition, mental karma. Number 3. Number 4, consciousness. All right. Now, number 1, material food, kabalingkara ahara. Sometimes the 2 words are joined, it becomes kabalingkarahara. Right? So you kind of let the words flow. Now, this is the gross food or subtle food that we take. The kind of food we take can be solid or can be even like very subtle. Yeah, subtle food are more like food of the gods. They kind of like imagine it, mental food, something like that. It sustains them. The gods are sustained by joy, especially the gods of the sense world. So this is the food we take. The food sustains us since we are born. Material food. Number 2 is food for the mind, or rather food for the senses, actually, food for the sense, contact. The eye has contact as form, the ear has sound as contact, and so on. So contact is that impact, if you like, stimulus. Okay, so the Pali term is phassa, contact. Then there is the third kind of food is mental volition. What does our mind do with all this food, with this experience? Mano sancetana. Now you notice the mano, mind, and there is the word cetana with the sang added to it, right? So this shows that kind of how we act on what we sense. It creates us mentally. And what is it that is created? It is number 4, consciousness. This awareness that is growing. Imagine right now, what your consciousness was like when you were 1 year old. I couldn't remember at all. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe 4 years old onwards, perhaps. So, and then you find this consciousness becoming deeper, more subtle, and so on. And now you find your consciousness is, very detailed, and you can know a lot of things and so on. So this consciousness is what keeps us going, keep us know things, learn things, become a better person, become a healthier person, and so on. So this is our consciousness, the mind, if you like. Right? So these are the 4 kinds of food. Basically, you have physical food and mental food, if you like. These pictures are the 4 kinds of food or nutriment for the maintenance of beings that have a reason and for the support of those seeking birth. So we are sustained by these 4 kinds of food. When this was spoken, the elder Moļiya Phagguna said this to the Blessed One. And now the drama begins. So there is this monk called Moļiya Phagguna. Phagguna is a very common name. So you have this like prefix Moļiya. a kind of nickname, so you know which Moļiya Phagguna we're talking about. So he asked the Buddha this question. Now, Bhante, who consumes the food that is consciousness, right? Who eats this food? Now, ko aharati. Who consumes, all right? The Buddha says, the question is not valid, wrongly put, said the Blessed One. I do not say that one consumes. If I had said one consumes, then it would be valid to ask Bhante who consumes. So notice, this is a very important discipline in learning. Don't ask the right questions. Now, asking right questions is important. It makes sense. It makes sense means what? You can do things with it, proper things. You learn things. You get things done, and you become wiser. Otherwise, we can be wasting our time. Right? Of course, there is something called humor. Humor is when things go a little awry, a little mixed up. When you ask the wrong questions, and then it's funny. But it's funny because the question is wrongly put. So that's one aspect of humor. Humor highlights something wrong, and that needs to be corrected. Okay, I've yet to write a paper on humor, so we'll talk more when I present it. So now let me read 3.2 again. But I did not speak thus. Since I did not speak thus, if one should ask me, now Bhante, what is the food that is consciousness for? This would be a valid question. So here you see the Buddha correcting Phagguna. It's not a who question, it's a what question. Okay, let's just look at this for a short while. What's wrong with asking who? Now, when you ask who, you normally ask for a name, someone's name, his job, status, family, and so on. Right? So these are social things. Right? Who is that? Right? You ask, who is that? Who are you? Right? Of course, it's not a very polite question to ask if you meet someone. Usually we will rephrase it like, may I know your name? Okay? What do you do? But that's a what question, right? So who normally you ask for the name, and that's important in society because we want to identify the person for easy reference. But remember, this easy reference is conventional. It's just for the sake of communicating. It's not the final reality. So you find if people do not use their real name, we get a little concerned. We wonder whether this person is honest or not, right? That's why you find now with website and internet and social media, people can easily put a front. You can trick people quite easily because we don't know who really is on the other side. So it's quite tricky. Of course, there are ways of knowing things. And knowing a person starts with knowing the person's name, right? So anyway, but if you really want to know the person, you go beyond the name. After you ask the who question in society, you ask the what question, and other questions we will look into in a moment. All right, so the Buddha says, okay, the right question is, what is the food that is consciousness for? What is it for? And the answer to this valid question is, the food that is consciousness is a condition for the realizing of future rebirth. Consciousness connects us to the next moment, and the next, and so on. And we are reborn that way. Even if the body dies, the mind continues into a new physical structure, into a new form. All right? Okay, let's go further down now a bit. Oh, there you are. So here the Buddha says something else. When that being is, the six senses are. With the six senses as basis, there is contact. So you find, we talk about consciousness, you also have the six senses, right? And the six senses connects with the world. The sense objects are the world. So the consciousness, the sense faculty, and the object forms a cognitive triangle. Then you have contact, you have sense impression, you have sense stimulus, you know things, right? So now the Buddha talks about contact. From consciousness goes to contact. 4.1. Now, okay, Phagguna asks again. Now, Bhante, who touches? Who feels the contact? Ko-pusati, right? Now, notice here, you have a problem question here. Not only Phagguna uses the wrong relative pronoun, basically he's asking the wrong question. We need to look at this word pusati. It's very clear in Pali, pusati means touches. And from touching, you get feeling, right? But in English, you say feel, the sense is quite uncertain, right? But I've decided to use the word feel because it is simple, and we can tell ourselves, okay, feel means, how do I feel about this in a sense of contact? Now, if you discipline yourself, you train yourself to think that way, then you find language is clearer to you. We should not simply follow the dictionary. It's the dictionary that follows us. Okay? Then our minds are more open. Then we are more ready to grow, to learn new things. So again, Phagguna asked the wrong question. Who touches? Who feels the contact? Right? So notice here, notice the method I use. I use a simple word first, who touches. I'm not merely talking about the act of, pressing your fingers on something. I mean touch in a sense of you feel the contact, pusati, right? So once you have this kind of discipline, you have a new vocabulary that is Pali-based, that is Sutta-based, and easier to understand. Instead of using big, long words, who contacts or who feels the contact, and I find that that's quite a mouthful, right? So once you have this kind of discipline, then you find it's easier to understand the psychological language of early Buddhism. So here again, Phagguna asks the wrong question. The Buddha says, the question is not valid. It's wrongly put, said the Blessed One. I do not say that one touches. If I had said one touches, then it would be valid to ask, Bhante, who touches, right? You can notice this language, how the Buddha says it. He doesn't say one touches. He doesn't say a person touches. But I did not speak thus. Since I did not speak thus, if one should ask me, Bhante, with what as condition is there contact? This would be a valid question. So the proper question is, with what as condition is there contact? How does contact arise? It's another way of explaining it. And the answer to this valid question is, with the six sense spaces as condition, there is contact. Notice this is part of dependent arising already. With the six sense spaces as condition, there is contact. through the six senses. It can be any one of them: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, directed towards the object. There is contact. With contact as condition, there is feeling, right? So I think most of us are familiar with this, the early part of dependent arising. So notice consciousness, contact, feeling. There is, of course, there is sense basis before contact. Okay, so now the Buddha goes on to this last one, feeling. So now Phagguna jumps queue. He says, now Bhante, who feels? Ko vediyati. All right. So Phagguna is kind of his mind is quite narrow. Just think of who. Okay. The question is not valid. Wrongly put, said the Blessed One. I do not say that one feels. If I had said that one feels, then it would be valid to ask Bhante who feels. But I did not speak thus. Since I did not speak thus, one should ask me, now Bhante, with what as condition is there feeling? This would be a valid question. In a sense, you can, if you like, replace this question, what causes feeling? It's not a very good translation. Normally, serious Buddhist scholars would not say what causes feeling, right? Rather, we say, what is the condition for feeling? The reason is because feeling is not caused by just one thing. There are many things working together as conditions, many causes, if you like, for feeling to arise. So here, the Buddha goes on, and the answer to this valid question is, with contact as condition, there is feeling. When there is sense impression, when the sense object connects with the sense faculty, there is feeling. And then what happens when there is feeling? With feeling as condition, there is craving. So notice, you have cause effect, or causes effects. Yeah? Now again, Phagguna asks his who question. 6.1. Now Bhante, who craves? Ko tanhiyati. Who craves? So we learn some Pali sentences. No? Again, the Buddha has to correct him. Notice the Buddha is very patient with him. The question is not valid, it's wrongly put, said the Blessed One. I do not say that one craves. If I had said one craves, then it would be valid to ask Bhante who craves. But I did not speak thus. Since I did not speak thus, if one should ask me, now Bhante, with what as condition is there craving? This would be a valid question. And the answer to this valid question is, go on now, further down. With feeling as condition, there is craving. With craving as condition, there is clinging. So this is quite natural and logical. Craving, you have feeling, you look at something, you like it, you don't like it, that is craving. And then this craving makes you want more of the same thing that you like. Okay? And the same condition of pushing away what you don't like, that's called clinging. Holding on to an idea. It's like a little baby who will not sleep unless it has its favorite blanket, something like that. Now, Phagguna continues with his full question, 7.1. Now, Bhante, who clings? Okay, who clings? Ko upadiyati. Again, the Buddha says the question is not valid. Let me summarize here. So the Buddha says, if you ask, the right question is, with what as condition is there? Clinging. With what as condition is there? Clinging. This would be a valid question. If you can't remember this long sentence. Just basically what causes condition. That's to help you think, and then you unravel that. What causes to clinging, or what causes clinging, what leads to clinging, and then you think in terms of condition. What is the condition for clinging? Right? So now the Buddha continues with the last part of the dependent arising. Okay, the answer to this valid question is, with craving as condition, there is clinging. When you crave for something and then you get it, you cling to it. With clinging as condition, there is existence. So when you cling to something, you become that thing. You become that thing. That's existence, becoming. And sometimes the word power is translated as becoming, but for some reason it's not correct, not popular translation. We normally use the word existence. With existence as condition, there is birth. That means you're going to get a new life with that kind of condition, birth. With birth as condition, there arise decay and death, sorrow, lamentation, physical pain, mental pain, and despair. Such is the arising of this whole mass of suffering. So there you are. So this is what the Buddha is trying to warn us. If you get caught up with this food, you're going to have all this pain. All right. So the idea is, know what you're doing and do it properly so that you cut down, at least you cut down suffering, and in due course, you're free from suffering. Okay, I'm going to stop here for a break before I go on to dependent ending. Now, having explained in brief dependent arising, the Buddha will go on to talk about dependent ending, right? So you don't see the word dependent ending as a Pali term, interestingly. So this is an English phrase. It helps us. So 8, Phagguna, with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the 6 phases of contact. In other words, this sensing stops. Okay, like for example in deep meditation, okay, there is a cessation of contact. With the cessation of contact, there is a cessation of feeling. No contact, no feeling. With the cessation of feeling, there is a cessation of craving. No feeling, no craving. With the cessation of craving, there is the cessation of clinging. No craving, no clinging. With the cessation of clinging, there is a cessation of existence. No clinging, no existence. With the cessation of existence, there is a cessation of birth. You do not arise anymore like that. And with the cessation of birth, there is a cessation of decay and death, sorrow, lamentation, physical pain, mental pain, and despair. And with the cessation of this whole, such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. Right? Now here, of course, it's amazing how the Buddha managed to phrase this, and you can experience it, like in your meditation, when you're very calm, very still, thought-free, you feel very peaceful. That is a taste of awakening, if you like, right? In this body, in this existence, of course, you need to go through the process of dependent arising, right? Now, so here we have a quick look at the nature of how the mind works, how to ask the right questions, and how to live in such a way so that we learn things, understand ourselves better, and we feel the peace and joy, even while we live, right? Despite the suffering. It's possible to be happy, but of course we are on this journey towards greater awakening. Now, before we close, I just want to show how, by asking the right questions again, we can relate it to the Four Noble Truths. Now, the who question relates to the First Noble Truth, the state of suffering itself. When we say who did it, we are looking for someone to blame. Who caused this suffering, right? So the First Noble Truth, that is the state of the arising unsatisfactoriness, is represented by the question, who? Whenever you ask who, there is a sense of unsatisfactoriness there, right? And the second Noble Truth is the arising of suffering, that is craving. And this is the what question. What brings about suffering? Okay, what? There is always this thing. When you say what, there is this something. And the third Noble Truth is the ending of suffering, that is nirvana. And here, of course, it asks why. Okay, why? Why? When you learn to ask why, and in the end, there is no more questions to ask. That's nirvana, the end of suffering. And the fourth Noble Truth is the way to suffering's end. The Noble Eightfold Path is the how. How do we get there? Okay, how do we do it? How means, first we start with disciplining our body and speech through moral conduct. The second how is taming the mind. Third how is cultivating wisdom. Okay, so this is in section 336, the truth of the question. You can read up on your own. I've written some notes there. Okay. So this is a short sutta, and we have some time for questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before we start that session, I'll go back to the sutta again. I think there is a typo, I think, number 8. But Phagguna, with the remainderless fading and cessation of the 6 bases of contact, isn't it should be 6 tense bases?
I think the 6 bases of contact here refers to, of course, the 6 sense bases. You can use either one. It refers to 6 sense spaces, but because of the word contact, even without the word sense, it makes sense here. I will check the Pali, and then we will see how it goes. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So
Now
that's why we need proofreading. Okay. It's not a mistake of the sutta. These are human mistakes, if there is a mistake.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a Q&A. We hand over the session to Sister Aisin. Sister Aisin, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Hannah. Thank you, Brother Piya, for the teaching. Brother
Okay.
Sister, if you have any question, you can type your question in the chat box, or you can ask verbally now. Brother Piya, the first question from Sister Susie. The first 3 links of dependent arising are not mentioned here.
Yeah. Here you find the Buddha will take excerpts of the 12 links and to explain certain things. It's not always that he will go through all the steps, but it is understood in other contexts. Otherwise, it'd be very repetitive, and then we would tend to, we will feel bored about it. So here we see what is called a contextual presentation of dependent arising, how it is connected with how we sense things, how we think, how we act, and so on. And you can read on the 12 links on your own, of course. Yeah? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Brother Piya. There are no questions in the chat box at the moment. Any brother and sister would like to ask a question verbally? Yeah. You can unmute and ask.
Sometimes certain sections of the sutta will catch your attention. We say, wow, this is interesting. Make a note of that. Reflect on that. So that's your window, that's your keyhole. And then from there, you connect with other teachings. And then as time passes, you learn new things. Now, as I've said many times before, if you start studying suttas early, I started very young, in my late teens. I mean, in those days we were young, we don't really know what we're doing, and the translations were very bad, very intellectual, very scholarly, but not helpful really. And now you find, wow, there's so many new things you can know, you can relate to them, you can practice them and talk about them even. All right. So always remember, you are not reading a sutta, you are practicing it. So as you mature, you find your understanding also matures. The sutta is you. It's about you. It's not about something that happened long ago. It started there, yes, but it's about you right now. That is why the sutta start at one time. At one time. At one time is right now when you are reading it and practicing it. Okay?
Brother Piya, the next question from Brother Maya Opal.
Okay.
How would contact cease other than deep jhana or death?
Well, the simple way is to close your eyes. You say close your eyes, see more. The meditation teachers like to say that. Close your eyes, see more. Right? When you close your eyes, you see with your mind. Right? The idea here is not to close our eyes to the world, rather keep our eyes open to the world and watch what's going on and watch with wisdom. We're supposed to watch wisely. Yoniso manasikara. Okay? Yoniso. The word yoniso is very funny, It means down to the yoni. It's almost humorous, no? But the yoni also means original, the origin, okay, nature, right? So yoniso means natural, in the right way, the way things are. Manas, mind, kara means to act with the mind, to attend to pay attention to, okay, wisely, down to the roots. All right. So we see things yoniso manasikara. You look at things knowing they will change. You look at things knowing they will become other. All right. So this way in the SD 60.2, the Paṭicca Sutta about breath meditation, the Buddha talks about 9 benefits of breath meditation. And he says, well, with breath meditation, when you look at things, you know they are impermanent. You know they rise and fall. All right. So you're seeing things correctly. So you either see things correctly or close your eyes and be happy with the stillness. Right? So that's how you let go of contact. Contact brings suffering, in a sense, in a manner of speaking, right? But properly used, yoniso manasikara, contact can bring wisdom, in a manner of speaking. Okay?
Thank you, Brother Piya. The next question from Sister Susie. Seems like from this sutta, we need to cut at contact, or do we cut the link at feeling?
Very interesting question. Yes, it's often noted that in the dependent arising, in how we experience things, the one strategy is to stop at feeling, right? Let's say you listen. I like the example of food. Okay, you find you eat something, you say, "Oh, this is nice. I like it," and then you know when to stop. You know when to stop. Okay. Now, there are two reasons for this, because if you don't stop, you're going to get stomach ache, problems. And of course, you're going to put on weight and so on. So it comes as a group. Number two, if you go on eating it, you're not going to like it in the future, right? So whenever Ratna prepare something nice, I say, don't do this too often. Wait, whatever. You might not like it. Okay? So that's the secret of liking a dish. Don't eat your favorite too often, and then it won't be your favorite anymore. Okay? So the niceness of food is the difference. And as I say, hunger is the best sauce. Hunger is the best sauce. When you're hungry, the food tastes nice anyway, right? So something like that. So that's how you use dependent arising, your psychology of the senses to live happily, basically. Knowing when to stop. And that's moral training. Knowing when to stop. Knowing when not to do it. Okay? So, yes, that's a good question. Yeah?
Thank you, Brother Piya. At the moment, there's no question.
Yes. All right, people are thinking, right? Anytime, just ask the question. Still about 15 minutes. So just to take a note about feeling, when you experience something, that part where you see something as pleasant, you say, okay, it's pleasant, it's impermanent. And then you see something annoying, you don't like, you show your compassion. You say, oh, this person is probably not happy, and then just take it like that. Right? That way, you're not pushed and pulled by like and dislike. Because beyond that, after the next stage is sankara. You begin to say, oh, I don't like this. When you say I don't like this, it's rooted in hatred, ill will, right? Or say, oh, I like this, I want this, then it's rooted in craving, right? So we don't want to go there, all right? So when we listen to, let's say, beautiful music, we just say, okay, very peaceful, right? We just say it's peaceful. We don't say, I want this. We just say it's peaceful. That's good enough, all right? The question?
The next question from Brother Maya. Could you share some forest monks' writings?
Yes. What do you want me to say about forest monks' writings? My take on them, is that?
If you could share something. So, yeah, please. Sorry. Go on.
Sorry?
No, go on, Brother Piya, please.
Okay. What I do when I read forest monks' writing is I just read through. It's like they're talking to me, because it's actually what they are talking, and then they're transcribed by devotees. So I'll listen to it, and then I'll say, oh, that's interesting, and then I'll see if there's anything new there. They normally will say things that are in keeping with the suttas, and sometimes they have quite a, what we would say, a simplistic view of certain things. We see ourselves having sophisticated views of sankara and all the big terms. We know cognitive consciousness and so on. They don't use such terms. So they basically tell you, you do this, you're happy. You meditate to be at peace. They talk very simple, very direct, experiential language. So that's where you find their presence is so peaceful. Very often people look up to them for that. Their presence, their personality is peaceful. So in a sense, it's their person, right? That is the sutta. You look at them as an example, and then you follow that. Of course, for us, we have the advantage of both knowing the scar teachers as well as knowing the suttas. So we're able to explain in more detailed in a way that educated people want to hear and so on. So there is that connection there. And if we know how to speak that way, at the same time we are experiencing the joy and peace of the sutta, that would be wonderful. Yeah. Of course, there is the other extreme where you find there are followers of these forest monks who actually worship these monks. They think these monks are arahats, or I mean, I don't mind them calling whatever they want these monks. It's that they look up to these monks as almost like idols. They worship them and so on. So you have a different kind of approach there. It's not sutta approach anymore. I mean, I'm not saying they're bad people. It's just that they are very devotional people, basically. Okay. For example, in the Northeast Thailand, you have this amulet cult. The amulet cult centers around this meditative forest monks. Somebody gave me a bottle of balm, I think mentholated kind of ointment. I looked at it and I thought about it. Wow, it was around 75. That's about nearly 50 years ago. And this was from one of those not so well-known forest monks. Of course, if you look at online, it is quite well-known. You know, this Ajahn Plean, Panya Padipo. So he wanted to be a doctor as a young man. So he made this ointment. So, you know, when people use this kind of ointment, they say, oh, wow, this is from an arahat monk and a forest monk. And then that faith helps them to heal. It's called faith healing. So I thought to myself, this is good. I have some contact with this forest monk, you know. So, yeah. And people still talk about him. They have a website about him. He has written something. And they look up to him as an awakened saint, you know. So they create amulets in his name. When he passed away, they commemorate his passing away with amulets, and they wear it, believing it will protect them. Their faith protects them, all right? But that's one group of people. It's the way they think. Yeah. Okay, 5 more minutes.
Thank you, Brother Piya. The next question from, yes.
Could you share some names also that we could look up for ourselves of some good Thai forest monks for their writings?
You can begin anywhere, and you find if the writing is helpful, you read it. Forest monks don't write things, as I said. You know, their followers publish them, and sometimes the translation is not good. For example, this translator of this Ajahn Plean, Panya Padipo. Of course, my good fortune, I know Thai, also I know Pali. They didn't even translate his name properly. You know, Panya Padipo means the lamb that is wisdom, the wisdom lamb, and so on. They translated it as they say, oh yes, it means someone with great wisdom. It's not very good, not accurate at all. So read up, feel it, you find connected, you find peaceful, that's good. All right. And in fact, you find you don't even need to know the author in this case, but you know the piece is there. But knowing the author means you can maybe read some more from this person who is very helpful. Ajahn Chah is very well known for this kind of writing. There are many such teachers. But the writings are also easily available, by the way. They're free online. You can just download them. There's quite a lot to read there. You know? But like I said, you read that for feeling. You feel good, you know. I don't think you can learn much the way you learn the suttas. Right? But both are helpful for a person. Like for me, I enjoy reading it. I feel peaceful reading it. Any other question?
Thank you, Brother Piya. The
Yeah.
next question from Sister Pamuja.
Okay.
Asking Teacher Piya, what about a blind person?
What about a blind person?
Yeah, I think she's referring to contact, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Here, contact, well, of course, he may not have contact through the eye, but there are contact in 5 other ways, from hearing, smelling, and so on. So somehow they also learn things, but they don't. I suppose they have less issues with seeing. Yeah, but they still have anger. They still have desires, things like that. So probably they can recognize people through sound. So the idea of sound is more, what should I say, specialized than us. You see, they can sense whether you like them, you don't like them by the way you talk. For example, right? So don't assume that blind people don't know you because they can't see you. See? They can sense the way you talk, your personality, right? But I don't know much more than that. But that's my kind of guess. Yeah.
Thank you, Brother Piya.
Okay.
The next question from Brother Maya. And how do we cultivate Yoniso Manasikara looking at the world?
Okay, the basic idea behind Yoniso Manasikara, or wise consideration, wise attention, is the reflection on impermanence, the perception of impermanence. See everything as impermanent, right? When desire arises, it's impermanent. When fear arises, it's impermanent. Good things come, it's impermanent, like that. So just take it as it comes, let it go. That way you find you enjoy the good things and the bad things just pass by like that. The second thing is conditionality, causes effect, how A leads to B. And you end A, B also ends. It's conditionality, okay? We don't use the word causality, we use conditionality. Right? So these are the two things, okay? The whole of dependent arising depends on this understanding also, Yoniso Manasikara. Yeah? So wise attention, right? The basic idea is see impermanence in all things. And once you see impermanence, the other two will, you cultivate the other two in due course. Suffering, unsatisfactoriness, and the last one is non-self. That's the most difficult one. Okay. Any other question?
So, Brother Piya,
Yes.
so when you're looking at conditionality, sometimes I think it happens that you end up being more accepting rather than more acting, because then you are seeing the condition, they were like, okay, this is because of this, so then okay, now why do a lot of things to change it? It's fine, let it be.
All right. Yeah. Well, you have to know when to practice it. For example, you have to make a decision during a board meeting. I mean, that is a different situation. You have to think like what others expect you to think. I mean, you are running a business, okay, so, but you have this wise consideration. So you think ahead a bit. You're able to think more broadly, more futuristically. In fact, it helps you think, if you have that kind of idea, the understanding, I mean. So this Yoniso Manasikara is more for things that really matter in your life, things that really mean something to you, not for emphasizing worldliness and all these corporate things and, what should I say, false happiness, basically. All right. I mean, you can make all these tons and tons of money, but then what are the consequences? What are the other things that go with it? You have to consider that too, right? So, in other words, you can tell yourself, for example, you may not have much money, but you know what to do with it, and you're happy with it. See? And that's really wonderful. And that is something even the richest guy don't have. I mean, they just say they're so worried about just a certain number of points went down, and their heartbeat also went down with it. I mean, it's not worth it, isn't it? So the secret is to learn how to be happy and also be rich. If that's what you want, that's fine too. I mean, in Buddhism, the Buddha does talk about wealth. The Buddha does talk about the duties of a wealthy person. How to be happy as a wealthy person, because a wealthy person can do so many wonderful things, which a poor person can't. So you can be more happy if you want with the wealth, with the good karma you have. Right? It's just like not just wealth in terms of money, wealth in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills. You see, like nowadays, you find so many people knowing computer skills. They have produced these amazing programs. Now I have all this Tripitaka from Thailand, everything in one little program. I just click it, I get the Pali, the commentary, sub-commentary, the translation, and the dictionary is going with it. Everything is there. I say, oh, this is heaven, I don't need anything else with the Thai Tripitaka. And then the Pali dictionaries, all the dictionaries, and I mean all, underline all, dictionaries available, good ones, expensive ones, are all available in one little app. You just click the word and all the dictionaries definition appear to you, select which one you want. Now, what else do you need to study Pali? It's all there nowadays. I mean, it just happened this year, I discovered it this year. So you find these people, they're using their wealth of skill to promote Buddhism. I hope they're using it themselves too, of course, because sometimes they're so busy doing it, you find they don't use it. They don't use these wonderful things they have created. All right? Okay, any more questions?
Thank you, brother. Yeah.
Yeah.
I meant it in a good way, actually. Accepting feels much more peaceful than acting.
Yes, of course. Yeah, then when you act, it is also peaceful. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. All right.
Yes.
So bring your Buddha back to India. I want to see that. It's really wonderful if that can happen. Huh? Okay, so no more questions, right? Okay, so let us get ready to close now.
Okay, we'll close the meeting.
Yes. Okay, as always, it's always a joy to be together in the Dhamma. This shows how we can be together so peacefully, building up more peace and wisdom. So remember all these wonderful things you have done today, the sacrifice you have made, this 1.5 hours of renunciation. And wish yourself well and happy so that you can build up your wisdom through your health and happiness. Send your loving kindness to your loved ones, to people close to you, people near you. Wish them well and happy, that you too will have the best of conditions to practice and grow. And let us conclude by bowing down to the three jewels, which are our precious guide. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasam. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.